Hello again. It gives me a great pleasure to introduce our guest speaker, Karen Ross, Secretary of the California Department of Food and Agriculture. But I need Jamie. I have to show again the picture that we saw before, the jojoba. The first time I met Secretary Ross was at the California-Israel Water Innovation Roundtable at the Hoover Institution, Stanford University. The event was chaired by former Secretary of State George Shultz, and at that time I demonstrated my singing abilities to both secretaries. I'll save you that this time. The second time we met, which was somewhat more meaningful, was on the Secretary's first day of the Climate Smart Agriculture Policy Mission to Israel, which Bob mentioned, of the California Department of Food and Agriculture. They drove down to Kibbutz Hatzerin, where I live, and where drip irrigation was introduced 50 plus years ago. We had a good discussion on how to achieve increased agricultural productivity and better quality yields while saving water. After having lunch at the kibbutz dining room, we stopped at our jojoba plantation to see how we use subsurface drip irrigation to irrigate the jojoba. It was a good opportunity to see how much farmers in Israel and California share. Karen Ross was appointed Secretary of the California Department of Food and Agriculture on January 2011 by Governor Brown. Secretary Ross has deep leadership experience in agricultural issues nationally, internationally, and here in California. Prior to joining CDFA, Secretary Ross was Chief of Staff of U.S. Agriculture Secretary Tom Vilsack. Prior to that appointment, she served as president of the California Association of One Grape Growers and as vice president of the Agricultural Council of California. Secretary Ross has strengthened partnerships across government, academia, and the nonprofit sector in the drive to maintain and improve environmental stewardship. She has initiated programs to provide greater opportunities for farmers and ranchers to engage in sustainable environmental stewardship practices through water conservation, energy efficiency, nutrient management, and ecosystem services. Secretary Ross, the stage is yours.
If you all are lucky, by the end of the day, Natty will sing for you too. What was remarkable about that day is that it really reinforced something that we witnessed firsthand last June when we did our trade mission to Israel. And that is a culture who from the time they are babies know how precious every drop of water is and thinks, Steve, my travel buddy. I don't know if you know Steve Moore from the State Water Board. It's great to see you here. But just how precious every drop of water is, and thinks carefully about how water is used, fresh water as opposed to recycled water. And having just led another delegation to Australia last week, we all have much to learn from Israel. So I thank you for hosting us at that time. I was fortunate to go through the Fresno factory several months before we went to Israel. And the partnerships that you see here are really going to be key to sustainable irrigation management. So I'm just going to take a few minutes this morning to talk about sustainability and the role that public policy does have in giving the right signals on that. But I first want to start with my core belief, and that is for people who say I am sustainable, you do not understand sustainability. Sustainability is a journey. It is not an endpoint. It is something that is constantly changing because we are working in farming and biological systems. Whether it's on the animal side or the plant side, we're working with sunshine and water and human resources and plant resources to make biological systems work. And if we think that they're always the same and there's an endpoint, then we are deceiving ourselves, and more importantly, we're deceiving our customers. So I think it's very, very important for all of us to acknowledge what a challenging and complex journey sustainability is, and that where it starts is with the commitment to use our resources as carefully as possible, to steward them in a way that achieves economic profitability, and profit is not a bad word. It creates prosperity in our local communities, that we're using those resources in a way that we can use them and future generations will also have the opportunity to use them, and that we're using them in a way that benefit not just the landowner, but the people within that community, with the creation of jobs, of ecosystem services, of recreational opportunities, of agritourism, all those things that come from when we're very mindful about how we manage our land and the resources it takes for us to do one of the most meaningful things in the world, and that is to produce food for those closest to us as well as to those that we export to around the world. So if I leave you with nothing else, I hope you understand my passion and my commitment to helping everyone come into the sustainability journey with us. Obviously, for those of us who are blessed and fortunate enough to farm in a state like California or other Mediterranean climates, we have a significant advantage in many ways because we have a climate that lets us grow the diversity of crops that we do in the bountiful way that we do, but water for all of us in those Mediterranean climates, just by their definition, is one of the most important resources for us to manage. I would suggest that in recent times, the state of California has gotten much better in producing policy signals which may not be appreciated, but certainly are driving a more integrated approach to how we manage our resources. When Bob Curtis talks about water use efficiency, almost every project up there had and nutrient management and energy efficiency and the reduction of greenhouse gases. When we think about that all going together, I think we are presenting a really compelling business case to our constituents about thinking about those all together. There are multiple ways of getting to a positive bottom line, and one of them is reducing costs, becoming more efficient, and each one of those, when we think about them in an integrated way, really can produce a very healthy bottom line, but they're also producing really substantial environmental benefits and social benefits to our public. And I think that's part of what has really helped move California forward on our sustainability journey is the commitment to addressing climate change and the platform that that has presented for us to use cap-and-trade investment dollars to really do important incentive programs on the ground, partnering with our farmers and nonprofits that want to work with our landowners. So when you look at the SWEEP program, our statewide water efficiency and enhancement program, we have granted almost $60 million for on-farm water use efficiency that captures all of those measures that Bob Curtis talked about. It's been interesting to see the split of people who are converting to new improved drip irrigation or micro sprinklers, but also investing in variable frequency pumps, evapotranspiration models, scheduling improvements. And as my friend Dave Sadalski, who I know partners with many of you here at UC Davis, is really his number one thing is really getting out there and maintaining the system that you have, looking for leaks, for where it's plugged, where the emitters really aren't working as well as they are. So the SWEEP program has produced some pretty remarkable results already. We've been able to grant projects on over 100,000 acres of farmland for an estimated savings of water of 71,000 acre-feet a year. That's nothing to sneeze at. But what's more interesting is the appetite for these grant programs. We've had $60 million available. We've had over 1,400 applications. We've only been able to fund about 590 of those. And it's generated $30 million in matching funds of what the landowner is investing to be able to leverage this. Hi, Glenn. I didn't see you out there earlier. So we had just finished our last round of available funding for the SWEEP program. Those applications closed last Monday. We had over 300 applications worth $20 million, and we have $3.5 million to grant. So we're going to all have to work together very hard to keep that funding stream going. And what I'm especially excited about, I'm looking at colleagues here from the Department of Water Resources, is that we are doing a pilot program, and the applications for that will close on May 21st. This is the Department of Water Resources matching dollars from the CDFA for putting in improvements in efficiency of the delivery system of an irrigation district and matching that with on-farm water use efficiency within the irrigation district. I would say that's one thing I learned a great deal about last week in Australia, is that it's really great that almonds are doing everything that they're doing, but we also have to take that knowledge and work with all of our individual irrigation districts to make sure that for everything that we're doing to improve on-demand, on-farm water use efficiency, the delivery of the water can match that, or more importantly, thinking about maintaining dual systems so that as we enter into the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act, we're thinking very deliberately about when can we do recharge, clean recharge. How do we use that dual system for delivering that water to the farm? Perhaps not during the irrigation system. Maybe it's going to be in the fall where some of our fish issues and the water temperature issues are not as critical as they are, in the April to June period. But really thinking about our system as a whole, how we use the existing infrastructure that we have, but improving the efficiency of what we have in that. I will also touch on the opportunities for recycled water and the use of treated wastewater. For me, this is a great opportunity to connect our urban-rural sectors. It's coming at a very momentous time because of the implementation of the Food Safety Modernization Act. But the fact is, we have that now before us, and let's think really smart and strategically about how we pair these systems up so that we are doing clean recharge, using that water in the smartest ways possible. So I think there's a lot of policy signals out there. The implementation of the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act is a huge undertaking for all of us, but it demands that all the voices are at the table in setting up these governance systems. The state of California, through the Department of Water Resources, is providing facilitation and grants to assist in that planning process. And then putting together the sustainability plans really does require that we think about the system as a whole. We look at who are the irrigation providers, who are the system providers, where are all those pockets of expertise. But I would say at the end of the day, none of us would be in the position that we're in had it not been for the creation of the land-grant university system, the research that we have enjoyed for 150 years coming through the University of California as what I would suggest the leading public institution for research in the world, and most importantly, what differentiates California and the U.S., but especially California, and that is the matching with cooperative extension. That ability to take research findings and get it to our end user as quickly as possible is what has created that continuous improvement, that continuous innovation, and led to the kinds of significant results that we have for our economy and for our environment. So when we think about sustainable irrigation management, one, think about the partnerships that make it possible. Demand that we continue to invest in publicly funded research that's tied to the extension of those research findings, whether it's through cooperative extension or through the many people in the private chain that also are extending that information. Think about how we really maximize that and continue to do that, and think about the co-benefits that come about when we focus on using water efficiently, which also leads to improved nutrient management, which leads to improved energy efficiency, which leads to reduction in greenhouse gas emissions. I mean, that's a pretty remarkable business case that we can be making, and I am very grateful that we have the infrastructure intellectually in this state that has led to sustainable programs like what the almond industry has done and what the grape industry has done and what others are leading to do. It is for those reasons that I'm very optimistic about the future of California agriculture, and that I would suggest for any commodity group or any of us in the agricultural sector who don't take advantage of traveling abroad to learn from others and thinking that we have the solutions here, we're missing the boat. Our friends in academia understand that. But Natty, I just want to say, I know how much time you spend on an airplane and how committed you are personally and your company is to sustainability. The fact is, as we work together and find solutions that work in Israel or California or Australia or the Netherlands, these are solutions that will also, I believe, work in Africa and India and Southeast Asia. And to be in a land as bountiful as California and know that we have real life famine now in African countries, all of us working together, thinking about our sustainability, if we don't extend those same results to nations that need it, we're not doing all that we possibly could for sustainability. So I'm going to leave it at that, if that's okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Secretary Ross. And I thought that was incredible. And it was incredible that you weren't here yet when I was introducing Nati and introducing the day, and Nati spoke. But that was answered all the questions that I had posed at the beginning, and it was just super relevant. It was just, you answered all the questions that I had posed. So thank you. Yeah.